Honey, I shrunk the church. Uh, okay, I shrunk. That's why I have this big jersey on. Oh, you want to take pictures? You're real funny, ain't you? Where's the beef? Right there, buddy. That's the beef. Hey, I got to explain this. I am a Michigan fan. Yeah. And the Flug family that I hate very much. I told them, I said, listen, if Notre Dame beats Michigan, I'll wear a Notre Dame jersey on the stage. And so this is the result of it. And I'm a man of my word, so endure. But I didn't ask for all the flags up, the flags of Notre Dame. Anyways. Okay. Hey, let's going to be a little different today. Please, no photography. Today is Honey. We start a new series, Honey, I Shrunk the Church. Now, a very large church that's, a mega church. What do they do? How is it that you can come in and, you find out, you meet somebody, and then you have a church that's growing. You kind of have a similar atmosphere. But whether it's a large church or a small church, what we launched 3 months ago is very biblical. And we're talking about community. We're talking about small groups. The very first small group on the planet that we, as far as just the importance of small groups. And he used the reference of Genesis 2:18, where God looked at Adam and he said, Adam, it is not good for you to be alone. And I've used that verse. I've used that verse on several occasions. When I have a wedding, I'll use that. I'll refer to it. God said it's not good for man to be alone, so he created for him, this beautiful woman that you're getting ready to get married to. So I've used that passage a lot. I've used that passage, and you can keep it up, Beth, there on the screen so you can see it as well. But I've used it when it comes to, small group material. And the whole idea, is the importance of this, this small group inside a church. And a verse that's not in note is Acts 5:42, which is, in every house they cease not to teach and preach Jesus, and in the temple. So every day, there was teaching going on. And Andy will explain that in just a little bit, when Saul of Tarsus was going house to house. Now, the thing that this pastor brought out in this message, which, I've never, I guess I've thought about that. I've heard about that verse and, that whole context of that chapter of my entire ministerial and church life. But I guess I've never really thought about Adam and God. I have, but sometimes it just goes over your head when this guy said, listen, Adam, when he said, Adam, it's not good for you to be alone, he said Adam wasn't alone. He wasn't. There was God. Adam had God. Now, from Genesis chapter 2, verse 6, when God formed Adam, we don't know the timeline or how much time there was between those verses, chapter 2, verse 6, all the way to chapter 2, verse 16. We know in those verses, when you read verse 18, we know in those verses that you read, it's God formed Adam, and then he breathed life into Adam, and then he placed Adam in the garden, which we know as the Garden of Eden. And then God begins to describe some of the things that are in the garden, the river that flows through the middle of the garden, and all these trees and different kinds of fruit. And he says, Adam, come here. You see those trees over there? Those are trees that I planted. Those are good trees, but there's one tree I don't want you to touch. And it's a tree. It's forbidden fruit. Don't eat of it. Don't just stay away from everything else is yours. Everything else you can enjoy, but that's one tree. So, he's talking as, Adam walked with God. And he walked with God in the cool of the garden. And he walked with God in the cool of the evening. Well, that's a thought. That's a thought right there, because you know what? We've got this. If you have trusted Christ, if you've invited Christ, you've humbled yourself and you said, you know what, Jesus, I'm nothing but a sinner. Come into my life, and the Holy Spirit has come into your life. Okay, now this is taken care of. You and God, you're not alone. You're not alone. He said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. I'm always going to be with you. I'll be with you. No one can take you out of my hand. I will always be with you. So this is taken care of. And when you look in the Bible, you're going to have, different references. After I heard him speak a part of that message, I went to Walking with God and just did a search on who walked with God in the Bible. And most of it came up, of course, in the Old Testament. And of course, Genesis 2:18, it's not good for man to be alone. I'll make a helper that is just right for him. And then in Genesis chapter 5, verse 24, you have that Enoch. He walked with God, and he was in close fellowship with God. And here they're walking together, and they're talking together, and then boom, God just, takes Enoch, and he just disappears. And he's up in the heavenlies. And man, that's wild. That Enoch once is. And when Enoch was taken up into heaven, he was 365 years old. That's a long time to live. And there's not a lot of question about that. You'll go to the Creation Museum, and you'll hear. That's one of the most questions asked. Why did the people, in the Old Testament, it seems like in Genesis there, they lived to these long, long years. They didn't live 83 and 90. It's like, wow, Enoch's 365 years. Methuselah, being the oldest man in the Bible, 969 years old, was 765 years old when he birthed a son, Lamech. Hello. Now that's old, be having kids. Over here, you say, well, those aren't the same years. They're the same years. If God says it's a year, it's a year. That's what we got to understand. The truth of Scripture is the truth of Scripture. If God said he lived 969 years old, we don't question it. Don't question it. If he had a baby at 960, the thing is so interesting is that they didn't laugh. Hey, honey, what? You're pregnant? Oh, really? Okay. And 700 years old. Now over here, when Abraham and Sarah, Sarah was 90 and Abraham was 100. The angel of God said, you're going to have a baby, Sarah. And she laughed. And Abraham said, wait a minute, I can't. Well, it's just God building creation. There's a number of, my wife and I were talking this week about this very thing. It's the presence of natural food. They didn't have McDonald's in the Old Testament. And when you're down in McDonald's and all this processed food, that is something to say about people who just eat berries and fruit and vegetables. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to eat McDonald's, okay? So that's why, give in to that. And in Acts chapter 10, when God dropped down to Simon Peter, said, you guys can eat anything you want. The law's been lifted. Go ahead. Eat it all. And that's why God said, when you live 73, you're living a good life. There in the old, I saw a Facebook post. It was a little funny. It said, hey, vegan. Hey, any vegans in the house? Hey, are you? Okay, well, got one. I'll tell you this. This is really funny. It said, hey, vegan, I ate your cow that ate your food. That's funny, isn't it? I don't know why I said it, but I just thought it was funny. Anyways, that has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with this talk we're having. I want to introduce Andy. Andy Sasser. Now, Andy Sasser was born and raised here at this church. And when you talk to Andy, he has a love and a passion for this church. He wants it to grow. And, we've had several talks over the years, what can we do? How, and we've talked back and forth. And he is just a great guy. You can't be around Andy a long time to know that he has a passion for the church and a passion for people. Now, he is the husband of Jennifer Sasser, and I think that's them walking in right now. We timed that pretty good. There's Jennifer and her 2 daughters and your son, and your daughters too, your daughters and your son. And Jennifer is the daughter, your in-laws, to Guy and Angie Randall, who are Bob and Irene Randall. That's her grandpa, right? And then you were telling us in the first service that we won't get into that skirmish that we did in the first service. It was funny, but the Lovitts, which is on your mom's side, so they're 5th generation here in this church. That's a long time, but Andy's desire is, man, I have been here a long time, but my passion and my desire is to see the church grow, not only numerically, but spiritually as a family of God. Now, Andy's bivocational. By that, I mean he's a marketer by day and travels from city to city in all the state of Ohio. And so, man, he is busy. He has another little job on the side that he's been doing for years. He also has a family that Jen and the children. So about 4 months ago, I said, Andy, we talked about a coordinator, a small groups coordinator. Would you do this for us? And of course, he was ready to, take charge, take the bull by the horns and say, yeah, I want to do this. And so would you please, for these next few minutes, give a nice warm welcome to this stage, Mr. Andy Sasser.
No, there you go. See if I really need a mic. Okay, so I'm going to say this, and I said this in the first service. One of the things when I was first given this task to be small groups coordinator, I don't like, it was pastor, and that word freaks me out. I don't preach at people. So, is basically, I immediately knew I could not find the answer of how to run this right here. So, and when I say it is in business, if you're in business, sometimes you go and seek out the people that do it well, try to pick their brains if they let you do it, and then try to create your own way, but use the same kind of platform or same blueprint, right? So that's kind of what I did. So in that process, early on in that process, Matt introduced me to Mike Pendleton, who did your announcements today. Me and Mike have become really good friends, and he has spent a part of his life over at Vineyard, and over at the Vineyard, what they do, one thing they do well, they serve well, but they also connect and they do community well. And with community comes small groups. And so he plugged me in with a guy by the name of Keith Thomas, and Keith actually helped. He actually worked at the Vineyard over in England, and then he started doing small groups in 1983. So he's got 36 years of experience of leading small groups, picking facilitators, picking leaders, and the beauty of Keith Thomas is he understands what it means to invest into God's kingdom. That's as simple as I can say it. 1 Timothy 6, 18 through 19. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. By doing this, they will be storing up their treasure as a good foundation for the future so that they can experience true life. Let me break that down for you. So Keith is he's pretty much investing in a foundation here at Landmark. He's no longer small groups pastor over there, but he does attend there. But he also leads tours, and kind of like what you guys are going on. He leads tours through Israel. He does, I think it was about 10 trips. I might be wrong on that, but he does that every year, and of Israel it is. But he's willing, what he's doing is he, in my opinion, his good works, his generous of those in need, I sought him out. I asked for help and said, hey, Landmark has done small groups in the past. Landmark does small groups in different varieties now. This is what I want to do. I want to do a community group that gets together and does life together. That to me is small group. If you've seen any of our Facebook Landmark website posts about small groups recently, a micro community of Jesus followers doing life together deeply, a safe place to get your questions answered and share your needs. If you fall into that, you belong in a small group. Even if you're just like, my needs are, I want to connect with more people at Landmark. You go to small group. I want to learn, I want to dive deeper into the Bible, Andy. Go to small group. I just want to get connected and people that are like-minded and similar to me. I've got some kids. Anybody that has kids in their 30s right now, you probably feel, I don't have a whole lot here for you at Landmark. Let's do small group. That's as easy as I can say it. So the question is what is small group? Well, I read you the definition of what we're going by, but what is Jesus' strategy? He started his own small group with 12 guys, one dud, unfortunately. And after he left, when he left and ascended to heaven, that's where the book of Acts kind of takes over. And you see what happens with the early church, which was small groups, is what it was. In Acts 5:24, every day, this is talking about the disciples here, in the temple, and it says, and every day in the temple and from house to house, they continued to teach and preach this message, Jesus is Messiah. So during the day, they would go to the temple and preach, and actually what I feel, they were going and recruiting facilitators to lead house groups, is what they were doing, and they were preaching at the same time. And with that, all of a sudden, they were being persecuted, and Stephen gets stoned, and in Acts 3 chapters later, in Acts 8:3, but Saul was going everywhere to destroy the church. So this is Saul, who eventually becomes Paul, but this is early on when he's persecuting Christians. But Saul was going everywhere to destroy the church. He went from house to house, dragging out both women and children and throwing them into prison. So how did he know where to find them? Because everybody knew that the early church was being met house to house. Now, did they have limitations? Did they have a small group as big as Johnny Claiborne's? Probably not. I mean, he has but at the same time, there's probably only so many people that could discreetly worship God and Jesus in those houses back then, so the groups were small. So let's flash forward 2,000 years. Why is it important to do small groups now? We're not being persecuted. It comes down to relational Christianity. So basically what that means in simple terms is people that emotionally pour into each other's lives. Me and Mike have coined a phrase that we like with small groups, and it's, we just don't talk about life, we do life. Because anybody you're in small groups with, you're doing life with them. They are going to be your core people. They are going to be your go-tos. Let's flash back to what I said here. It says, a micro community of Jesus followers doing life together deeply, a safe place to get your questions answered and share your needs. That's who you go to. If I'm in a small group with, say, 10 other people, about 5 couples, including my wife, those are the people that if I haven't, my kid is sick, that's who, besides family, that's who I go to say, hey, pray for my kid. Hey, me and Jen are struggling with this. This is who I would go to. Or hey, my job's got this going on. That's who, that you are deeply investing in each other's lives. Take, for instance, Landmark here. Landmark's located on Glendale, Evendale. It's basically Glendale, Evendale, and Woodlawn. Sorry, I apologize, Woodlawn. So think of that. So when you're on vacation and somebody goes, hey guys, where are you from? Do you say you're from Woodlawn or Evendale or Glendale? No, because nobody's going to know what you're talking about unless you're in Glendale, Arizona. You're going to say, I'm from Cincinnati. So if you're out, if you're inside the church here, somebody's going to be like, oh, you belong to Johnny Claiborne's group, or you belong to Rick Ball's group, or Matt's group, or whoever your group, that's who your family is. But outside the church, you're going to say, I go to Landmark. Same concept. It's a family, a small, intimate family inside of the church family. There's no way you can seriously go to everybody in this room and pour into your life to every single person. It's just not possible. So I talk about all this, and then in Romans 12:13, when God's people are in need, be ready to help them, always eager to practice hospitality. So I say that because a lot of these verses, and I'm going to reference here also the financial fitness devotional that I did, and it talks about investing in God's funds, using your money in service, you're using your money to service God's purposes, then you're storing up treasure in heaven. That's what the passage says. So I want you to listen to that again, but I want you to replace the word money with time. So, but if you're investing in God's funds and using your time to service God's purposes, then you're storing up treasure in heaven. To me, whether you financially have the means to invest in the things at the church or you don't, everybody has some sort of time to a degree. Everybody has something that they can give. And with that concept, I feel that it's important, and even in the small groups that we're trying to do, that you also do service projects. I want us to be, when people hear Landmark, they want to think community. When you hear Vineyard and Crossroads, I think service. They canceled church, Crossroads canceled church in May and just did service projects. I'm not saying we're going to do that, but I'm saying I would love to have that mentality here. It's like, how can I serve you? It's kind of like Chick-fil-A. They don't say, how are you doing? They say, how may I serve you? Same concept. Proverbs 11:24, the world of the generous gets larger and larger. The world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. Now, that could be taken two different ways, in my opinion. One, we can talk about money. We always talk about money when it comes to this stuff. I've got 3 kids. I don't got no money. But I've got time. I've got love. I've got compassion. And so I feel that God looks at that in the same way. So when we talk about small groups, some of the most biggest misconceptions of small groups is people think they have to be Bible teachers. Not true. Actually, I don't want you to be a Bible teacher. I just want you to love people. Then they also feel, well, if I have a small group in my house, my wife's going to put on a spread. You know how expensive this is going to get? Just don't do that then. And I know some people mentally cannot do that. And that's fine. Maybe have somebody else host it at their house and you just lead it from their house. I mean, that's a good win right there, I think. But when I'm looking for facilitators, I want two qualifications, and these are a must. Because if you can't do these 2 things, you should not. We need to have some altar time with you. The first one is, do you love God? If you're trying to lead a small group and you don't love God, you're not leading my small group. Because I don't know what we're going to worship, but it ain't going to be God. My second thing is you love people. Now, I'm on the far end of the other spectrum of loving people. I love people too much. I give people too many chances is my biggest problem. Now, I say that, and Jesus would give that probably 10 more chances than I ever do. But at the same time, it's like you've got to love people. Not everybody's people, what do they say? Not everybody's a people person. There you go. I'm getting my words mixed up. And that's true. So if you can't handle people just lingering around your house, you shouldn't lead a small group. Unless you're going to lay down the rules and you're assertive enough to say, hey, man, 9 o'clock, you got to go. And that's okay if you have that conversation with your group. Because I don't want no 10 phone calls saying, Andy, this guy's a jerk. Well, that's a whole new realm of stuff we got to deal with. But small group is this, and Keith Thomas shared this with me of what he talks about, and we did a video with him that we're going to post on the website and on Facebook that I think you're really going to enjoy. He's got a sweet British accent, so, you can just get engulfed in just what he's saying the whole time. But he uses the acronym WIFE. And with that, the W stands for worship. So usually the way he starts his small groups or the way he tells people is like, and I would do this too, is like pull your phone out, attach to a Bluetooth speaker. If not, most people have phones that can just have a speaker good enough to play some music. Get on, Spotify, Pandora, put on a Christian music rotation and just play it. To me, music helps open up the soul. It helps prepare the heart for the message. I of wife stands for instruction. So dive into the scripture and devotions. This is going to happen. Unless you're doing a service project, every time your group gets together, you're going to dive into some sort of devotional or instructional thing that either I have set out as a curriculum, which right now we're doing Andy Stanley in the community, but I also want my groups to have freedom to do what they want. You know, some of my older groups might not have the same interests as my younger groups. So I want to do about 3 to 4 studies led together as the church, so we're unified small group wise. But at the same time, that leads you to about 24 weeks. So you got half the year left to do your own thing. Now, I want you guys to consistently meet, but at the same time, we're going to hook you up with Amazon Fire Stick and the Right Now Media access to where you can get whatever it is that you want and do a study. And I will even come and help lead your group the first week to show you how easy it is. F in the word wife stands for fellowship. Of course, some people's needs of small groups is not, I want to dive deeper into my Bible, because maybe they're already doing that, is they want to be connected. So fellowship is where you get to enjoy each other's companies and open up expressions about how you feel. Some of the biggest things that I get kicked back to is, Andy, I really don't want to share my feelings. Then don't. But eventually, I promise you, the more you feel like you're at home in those groups, you're going to want to share your feelings. And you'll be amazed about the amount of people that come up to me and say, man, that small group changed my life. I was going through this. I was real worried. I got connected, got into a small group, and I have the best experience now because of it. E in the word wife stands for expression. During small group, usually you're going to have some sort of evangelism, and you're going to have prayer, without a doubt. Another way that Keith is going to be investing into us here and helping us build our foundation at Landmark is he is actually giving me Saturday, September the 15th from 9 a.m. to noon over here in the fellowship hall. We're going to do small group leader training. And if you're not even a leader, if you just got, hey, I just love to learn a little bit more about this, come. We'll serve you breakfast. We'll go through everything, show you how easy it is, how easy I'm making it. And I promise you it's going to be really easy. We also have open groups right now. Sundays we have 2 open groups, or one's getting ready to form. It's not formed yet. Monday nights we have a group that's open. And I'm always looking for new facilitators. So even if you don't want to do it right now, get plugged into a group, see how easy it is, and then we can get you plugged in later. So in closing, let me say that. In closing, I want you guys to pray about this, because to me, being connected, and I've said this to multiple people, if you start a small group and it's like 3 people in your group, and you're like, man, I'd love to invite my neighbor, but they don't go to Landmark, I don't care. I'm already getting on somebody right now because I want him to open up a group for me in Mainville. And that's because his neighbors, that community, I don't care if you go to Landmark or not. I really don't. It's about community. We should all be after the same goal. And this is the marketing sales guy coming out of me. We are all here to serve God's kingdom. We're all here to grow God's kingdom. The book of Acts is about them growing the church. Okay? The church isn't these 4 walls, it's the fellowship in the community. So I say all that because and I'm not asking you to pluck people from other churches unless they don't like it there. I'm really not. But if they're in your group and they live next door to you and they just want a deeper dive, I don't care. Invite them. Bring them into your group. That builds connections. Because I got news for you. If you're truly saved and your friend that goes to the Vineyard or the Crossroads or maybe even a small church, if they're saved too, we're all going to be worshiping eventually together. So I don't know the whole mentality of they don't go to church with me, they don't have the same views as me. Hey, let's go back to it. Do you love God? Because I do. And I can find common ground with a lot of people. You got to keep it simple. And then, do you love people? I think most of us do. So thanks for listening to me today. I'm sorry if I ramble, but I just want to, I'm excited about this adventure that we're on right now. I think that I'm hoping it changes a lot of things mentally in the sense of community, service, outreach, and how we view people, how we view others. And out of this, I guess, if you ask me, Andy, what do you want to get out of what you're doing right now? I want Landmark to become one of the powerhouses of small groups. I want people that roll in here. I had a conversation with a lady, And so sign up at the back. If you sign up in the back connection center, you're getting a phone call from me because I drive 53,000 miles a year and I'm bored. So I'm driving, I'm calling. And so we're having these great conversations. And she's like, Andy, I've been at church for 3 years and I don't really know anybody. And I said this to somebody between services. I said, I'm to the point, if you know somebody that doesn't go to Landmark and you're in a small group, take them small group with you. Because then they're going to make connections and they're going to meet people, and then they're going to be like, yeah, I'll come to Landmark because now I know I have somebody to sit with. Think about that. That's why a lot of people don't come to church. Who am I going to sit with? That's all they think about. Are people going to judge me? I don't know anybody there. I don't want to go. Well, if you start community-wise, if we start planning community groups all over this area, and I just start plugging people in and saying, hey, guess who? Somebody so-and-so is coming to your group this week. Let me know how it goes. And all of a sudden, they're getting connected with people. And in the business side of things, and I'm not using this as a business relative, but in the business thing, I have to say in the last 15 years, all my jobs have come from networking. It has nothing to do with the fact that I put my resume out on Career Builder. It's from networking. People are like, hey, man, you'd be a good fit there. That's all it is. We're just networking people. We're getting them plugged in. And if you're here at Landmark, and I'm going to go on a limb here, if you're here at Landmark and you are not connected in small groups and you don't want to get connected in small groups, but you just want to get connected, reach out to me. Because I promise you, I'm ADD about it for some reason. I really don't know. It's like a curse. If you call me, I cannot not help but call you back. I cannot help but text you back. It's literally a curse. But at the same time, let it be your blessing. Because I got news for you. You call me, you reach out to me, I'm going to get you plugged in no matter where you want to go, and I'll make sure somebody here does it. And that's just the way, I'm just wired that way. It's the sale. I guess that's why I'm good at sales, because I'm relentless when it comes to things. So I'll pass this back over to Matt.
It's good. So you can see how passionate he is. And so that, that's contagious. So thanks, Andy. If you haven't had a chance to, and I'll tie this up. If you haven't had a chance to go over to that room, which Andy referred to as Fellowship Hall, that's what we've called it for years, there's a new floor in there. And so Dave Dorfline, Debbie's husband, is, you mentioned him in the first service. He's just like, epitomizes somebody who just is like, what do you need done? Da, 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 da. Yeah, so I walked in there yesterday, Debbie, and he's, working on that floor, and he had a shirt on. It said Cruise with a Cause, 2007. And so there was 90 plus of us that went. Are you paying attention to me? There was 90,000. I just want to say 90 plus of us that went to the Bahamas on a cruise. We did that mission trip. And he said, Matt, I got to tell you something. Because we talked about that shirt. And this ties it in. Thank you. This ties it in. This ties it in with community. He said, Matt, I just showed up once in a while here. I wasn't even involved. Johnny, this is a great story. And he said, you don't even remember this, but we signed up for that trip. My wife and I signed up for that trip. And we borrowed a bus from a local college, and we drove down to Cape Canaveral and boarded our ship and went. He said, we're just gonna drive behind you guys. And I said, well, why would you do that? That is 15, 16-hour drive. Man, don't do that. He said, well, I smoke a lot. I said, well, here's what we do. Just go to the bathroom. They have a little bathroom on that bus. Man, open the window and just blow all day, bud. Well, if people see me going back there, they're going to say something, he's back there smoking. Because, well, okay, if that's the problem, you come up and sit next to me, and we'll open my window, and we'll just smoke together, bud. We'll just blow it out there together. Well, he said, you know what? That tied me in. He said, okay. And from that trip and the people that we met, it tied us into the church, the community. And there he is, 11 years later. He's putting this floor down. Oh, you ought to check it out. It's really good. It's called barnwood vinyl plank. It's really sweet. It's really sweet. You go back into time, you'll feel like you're in a barn in there. So check it out. But Dave, it's just, it's all about, community. I want to leave some verses with you. Let me leave a couple of them. And Amos chapter 3, verse 3. Let me leave this one. This is a good verse. Oh, boy. Where's it at? It's right here. Here it is. Ready? Witnesses against, here it is. Can two people walk together without agreeing on the direction? No, we're doing this thing together. There's one over here in Micah in 6 and verse 8. Micah 6, verse 8. Once again, it's just walking with God. People of the Lord has told you what is good. And this is what he requires of you, to do what is right, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Once again, we're talking about your life with God, building your life with God. Let me share this little story with you, and then we're going to be finished. I came here in 1983, and in 1984, Dr. Harold was the co-pastor, and he told his father, who was the pastor, he said, listen, I've been studying this church over in South Korea. Now, this is 1984. And he said, they do this thing that's called a cell group. And, today, let me just say this. Today, this church that Harold was studying, it's called a Full Gospel Assembly, and Paul Cho is the pastor in South Korea. It's the largest church in the world. 225,000 people attend there on the weekend. They have 20 services, 25,000 seat audience. It's crazy. They have 12 full-time orchestras and musicians. It's like, why? How in the world? Well, a lot of that they have on Fridays. It's called Prayer Mountain. And over 10,000 people will go to Prayer Mountain, and they will pray, and they will fast, and they will seek God, praying for those weekend services. And then those cell groups, they started those cell groups. That's how they shrunk that church. That's how they stayed small. So when Harold shared that with Dr. John, he said, man, I like that. Let's do it. Well, the problem was he crammed it into everything else we were doing. We were doing Sunday morning, Sunday night. My wife and I, we had a small group on Monday night, a cell group on Tuesday night. We had church on Wednesday night. We had visitation on Thursday night. And then we'd go to some ball game, because we were youth pastors. We would go to a ball game on Friday night. And then on Saturday, we would have, every weekend, we'd have an activity for our young people. So it's like, wow. So I went into Dr. John, and I said, hey, Dr. John, I got an idea. And this is what you and I talked about. And this may help some of you right here. I know it took a while getting around to this story, but, you just have to bear with me, okay? Listen, I said, Dr. John, what if on Monday night, we just did cell groups with our family? He said, son, I like that. I like that a lot. He called it. He said, Harold, come in here. Guys, come in here. He's got a good idea. Now you tell. It wasn't a good idea. I was just looking for a night off. I was just trying to say, man, we're going so much. I just want to spend a night at home. And if I can do it with my family, that'd be great. Well, with today's technology and today's tools and the Fire Stick that he's talking about, and Right Now Media that you can bring right up on your phone, if you signed up for it, there's over 13,000 Bible studies on this. Now, let me share you this quick story before I close it up. I know I've said that 3 times, but just bear with me, I promise. A young lady, she's a single mom. She comes here on Sundays. She had to work today, so I'm going to tell this story. She has 2 young daughters. She has been here the last 5 out of 6 weeks. My wife and I met with her yesterday. Here's what she said. I don't know what's going on, but she said, I'm changing. I'm changing. My heart is changing. I want to read the Bible with my little girls. I want to read the Bible myself. Do you know of a good Bible? So we're going to get her a Bible so she can start reading them. I told her about YouVersion. I said, have you ever heard of YouVersion? She said, no. I said, well, it's an app that you can pull up, and you can get the verse of the day, meditation of the day. You can get a story of the day, and then it has the entire Bible and all different kinds of translations right there on your phone. She goes, that's crazy. I said, listen, and this is what's happening today. She said, you know what? She said a year ago I'd be doing something. I wouldn't think if I do something wrong, it didn't even enter my mind or my heart that it bothered me. But Johnny, she said, since I've been coming to church, and oh man, she said, the Lord just says, you need to get back to church. And she said, what's happening is she's growing. She's growing in the Lord. Now, I hated those signs. They were just dumb. Remember those signs that says, pardon our growth. You remember those signs? That's stupid. You walk into a hospital or something. No, again, it's a hospital. It's just a construction site, pardon our growth. I didn't mean to say that. That was probably a bad thing. Strike that from the tape. Or here we grow again. Oh, it's so dumb, isn't it? Here we grow again. Oh, you ain't growing. But here's the problem. But it is. It's a funny little thing, but we are growing. It's just not numerical. Absolutely. It's spiritual. We want to provide avenues. And yeah, he mentioned, Bread of Life. They meet on Monday nights over there at 6 o'clock. They've got a devotional. And then at 6:30, they have their Francis Chan on the Fire Stick and, for their clients. And then at 7 o'clock, they show the same thing again for their workers. And then Tom Link, he's over here on Wednesday nights. And then he's at John Gordon's house on Friday night, he and Wanda's house. And they're having another Bible study. These are different groups that are going on, and these are good groups. So we want to provide special interest groups. Like I'm talking to a guy right now, and we're going to start a divorce and recovery group here. And then, celebrate recovery, those who have been through addictions and those who are going through that struggles in life, just these different things that a church provides, these different avenues of growth to help people, in their walk with Christ. But what Andy is sharing with you, and with this I close. Matter of fact, the band can come up and do our closing song. What we're sharing is that, to sit around and to talk about the Lord and to open Scripture and to see what God has for you, there's nothing like it. That group becomes your family. And it's powerful because it is right. When you come into a place and you know just one person, you feel like you know 100. And, I've always said it. You got to go to school. You don't have to, but you have to go to school and you have to go to work, but you don't have to go to church. Jesus said it's a place where we want to meet because it is an anointed movement. It is a movement that he died for. It is, Ephesians chapter 5, he loved the church so much. He loved it so much that he died and bled for the church. So it is an anointed vehicle, and it's anointed of God. And so I want to be a part of it. And I challenged our seasoned veterans this morning. I said, listen, in that first service, man, young people look to you. We are to teach what we have. We got this. We got this. That's what God's saying to Adam. You got this. I want you to get this. I want you to get this. Relations. Let's stand together.